Bishop T.D. Jakes, one of the most powerful pastors in America, is now caught in allegations so shocking they could shake the very foundation of the Potter's house. Multiple voices are coming forward with disturbing claims, and the silence surrounding it is raising even more questions. Could one of the most respected church leaders be hiding a dark truth? Stay with me, because what we uncovered will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. For decades, Bishop T.D. Jakes has stood as one of the most recognizable and influential figures in modern Christianity. From delivering fiery sermons to transforming the Potter's house into one of the largest megachurches in America, his reach has extended far beyond the pulpit. But now, that carefully built image of success and spiritual authority is under fire. A storm of serious allegations has surfaced, claims made by several men that, if proven true, could not only shatter Jakes' reputation, but also send shockwaves through the entire faith community. This video isn't about spreading gossip, it's about digging into what's actually being said, how these accusations came to light, and the potential fallout they carry for one of the biggest names in ministry today. And here's the part you won't want to miss. There are details in this story that mainstream outlets aren't talking about, and angles that many are deliberately ignoring. So, if you've ever questioned what really happens behind the closed doors of powerful churches, or wondered just how much influence and secrecy surrounds leaders at the top, stay locked in, because this is about to get very real. You won't believe what we've uncovered, and trust me, this is only the beginning. To truly grasp why these new allegations are striking so deeply, you first need to understand who Bishop T.D. Jakes is and what he represents. He's not just another pastor leading a Sunday service. His influence is global. Born Thomas Dexter Jakes in 1957, he rose from modest beginnings to become a best-selling author, a film producer, and one of the most recognizable voices in Christianity. His Dallas-based megachurch, the Potter's House, draws more than 30,000 members, while millions more tune in to his sermons online and on television. But Jakes hasn't just built a congregation, he's built an empire. His annual conferences attract thousands from around the world. His books dominate bestseller lists, and even Hollywood has tapped into his influence, with Jakes serving as producer and consultant on major films. Presidents, celebrities, and business leaders have all sought his counsel. To many, Bishop Jakes is more than a preacher, he's a cultural icon. But here's where things take a darker turn. With that level of influence comes power, and with power often comes secrecy, control, and unfortunately opportunities for abuse that can remain hidden in plain sight. So when a figure like T.D. Jakes faces serious allegations, it doesn't just rattle one church, it threatens to shake faith communities across the globe. Think about it. Entire families have built their spiritual lives around his teachings. If those foundations crack, the impact could be devastating. In addition to their efforts, thousands of people have contributed financially to his ministry. He has been regarded as a symbol of achievement, hope, and heavenly inspiration for many years. These accusations are therefore more than just personal. They pose a challenge to the faith and allegiance of the millions who trusted him. And you should be aware of this. Over the years, there have been many rumors and disputes about the Potter's house itself. Critics have frequently implied that there is more to this megachurch than meets the eye, raising issues ranging from financial concerns about where donations go to worries about the atmosphere behind the scenes. However, since guys are now coming forward with these new allegations, the rumors are too loud to ignore. The fact that this story compels us to consider a challenging subject further heightens its appeal. To what extent do we truly understand the leaders we follow? And even though there is evidence to the contrary, how far are we prepared to go in order to preserve their reputations? However, we must first examine the circumstances that made T.D. Jakes untouchable in the first place before delving into the latest accusations themselves. Because you can only comprehend why these men might have remained silent for so long if you know the culture of the Potter's house. This brings us to the following section of the narrative. On any Sunday morning, you will see a sight that is practically unmatched when you enter the Potter's home. The large sanctuary, which resembles a music hall more than a conventional church, is where thousands of people congregate. As the service broadcasts to millions of people worldwide, cameras roll. Everything, the choir, the music, the lights, is meticulously planned to produce a worldwide show that serves as both a worship experience and a brand. Attendees find the energy to be exhilarating. It may be too much for first-time visitors to handle. However, behind the show, detractors contend that there is a different reality, a culture that values leadership allegiance above responsibility, and that there may be repercussions for criticizing the pastor. The potter's house is not the only one that does this. It has been alleged that numerous megachurches in America have established a system in which the pastor is treated almost like a celebrity. Their role as spiritual shepherds has evolved. They become into indestructible symbols. This can create a dangerous atmosphere where the congregation quickly learns that dissident behavior is not acceptable and the leader's word is taken seriously. Several former members have discussed their experiences in the potter's house in forums and interviews. It is referred to as spiritually uplifting by some. However, some claim it might come out as domineering. There are rumors of people who left the church only to feel excluded or even rejected by the people they used to worship with. Speaking out against the bishop can feel like betraying God himself to those inside. Claims like the ones that are currently coming to light can be hidden or rejected because of the atmosphere of quiet and unquestioned authority. How likely are you to come out with a traumatic story that could ruin the reputation of the guy so many name a bishop if you think your leader is God's chosen one and the others around you support that belief? Then there is the financial consideration. Millions of dollars in donations and income from conferences, publications, and media endeavors support the potter's house. A strong motivation to safeguard the brand at all costs is created by that amount of revenue. A controversy damages more than just one's reputation. After all, it poses a danger to an economic empire that includes real estate, entertainment, and publishing. The stakes are higher, and there is more incentive to keep detrimental information hidden when money and ministry are combined on this scale. The silence of religious leaders, however, is arguably the most disturbing feature. Bishop Jake oversees the work of all staff members, pastors, and elders. And how ready would you be to speak up if you spotted something wrong when your job, your income, and even your spiritual status are dependent on the success of one man? This is where the situation becomes even more intriguing. Throughout the years, there have been sporadic online debates and rumors about Jake's and the potter's house, but they have always been swiftly written off as slander, gossip, or attacks by strangers who are unaware of the vision. But history demonstrates that, in many instances where accusations against influential people turn out to be accurate, they began as rumors that were readily disregarded until the proof became too strong. And this tale is going exactly in that direction. That wall of silence is being broken for the first time by several men. They are sharing their experiences in public, and if their claims are confirmed, they have the power to completely alter the course of events. However, who are these men? What precisely do they claim? And why, after years of silence, are they suddenly coming forward? Next, we must investigate that. As a man of God, a leader of leaders, and someone whose authority was rarely questioned in public, T.D. Jake has upheld a polished image for years, but lately, that well-maintained image has started to show signs of cracking. Furthermore, the voices raising their voices this time are not those of angry churchgoers or arbitrary critics. These men assert that they have personally experienced traumatic events that are directly related to the bishop. The accusations initially started to surface in private online, on social media, in anonymous forums, and in whispered discussions. Narratives began to line up. These accounts initially failed to garner widespread notice. After all, claims of scandal are frequently dismissed as jealousy or enemy attacks in the world of celebrity pastors today. However, the constancy of these stories was what set them apart. A number of men from all backgrounds and stages of life started to have unsettlingly similar experiences. They talked about private meetings, invites that took place behind closed doors, and instances where their power disparity with Bishop Jake made it almost hard to refuse or speak up. According to their testimonials, the bishop's spiritual power was used as a shield to hide manipulation and, as they put it, unwanted approaches rather than as a tool for instruction. To put it plainly, these are accusations. Although no official allegations have been established in court as of yet, the accounts themselves are so numerous and comprehensive that they cannot be disregarded. Aware of the potential backlash and mockery, some of the men have really stepped forward using their true names. The stakes are raised by that alone, because criticizing a man of Jake's caliber is not only dangerous, but also potentially fatal. One man talked about how the encounter itself and the subsequent spiritual shame made him feel stuck. He remembered being instructed that to challenge or oppose the authority of the bishop was to challenge God's purpose. Another talked about years of silence, stating that he was afraid no one would believe him due to Jake's status as a well-liked public figure and preacher. Fear is a recurring theme in these tales. Fear of spiritual condemnation, fear of losing community, and fear of not being believed. This is when things become even more disturbing. According to reports, some of these accusations go back a number of years, which begs the issue of how long this trend may have been overlooked, or, worse, disregarded. Did anyone inside the Potter's home have suspicions but decide to keep quiet? Were measures taken to protect those who were at risk? Or did the loyalty and power culture make it impossible for anyone to speak up? What makes these accusations timing so? They are noteworthy because they occur at a time when society is less inclined to overlook wrongdoing by influential figures. The previous 10 years have demonstrated to us that when victims band together to share their tales, even the most powerful people can be overthrown, whether in Hollywood or politics. Is T.D. Jake about to face his own reckoning? Naturally, the bishop's supporters claim that these men are making up stories out of jealousy or the need for publicity, and we have to deal with that tension. On the one hand, a well-liked leader with millions of followers and decades of influence. On the other hand, a number of people with remarkably similar assertions that contradict all the principles his ministry upholds. The actual question that keeps coming up, though, is this one. Why now? After years of silence, why are these men coming out this season? Is it because a culture that is finally paying attention to survivors makes them feel safer? Or is there more going on in the background? Maybe there are legal investigations or internal fractures the Potter family's actual close circle. The increasing pressure behind the scenes might hold the key to the solution. Whisper implies that insiders are growing agitated and that some people in Jake's inner circle might no longer be content to remain silent. And if that's the case, the accusations you've heard thus far might just be the start. However, we must review the data, the receipts, the timings, and the voices seeking to be heard before drawing any conclusions. Because charges aren't the only thing at stake here. It concerns whether one of the world's most influential pastors can remain unaffected by the mounting criticism. And we'll go into more detail about that in the following part. The conflicting narratives, the facts presented, and the public's ambivalent response. Most individuals have a straightforward first question when faced with accusations of this size. Where is the evidence? Skeptics claim, without proof, that it's just another attempt to overthrow a well-respected leader. However, in the digital world of today, evidence need not always take the form of a courtroom testimony or a signed document. Timelines that coincide, text messages that reappear, or stories from strangers that reverberate in terrifying detail are some examples. A number of the individuals who have come forward assert that they have documents, emails, texts, and occasionally photographs that they say directly link them to private conversations with Bishop Jake or people in his inner circle. While not all of this information has been made public, some of it has reportedly been given to reporters and monitoring groups. The narrative is left in a stressful limbo as a result. Not enough to prove every claim beyond a reasonable doubt, but enough to raise important questions. On the other hand, the public's response has been evenly divided. Those who believe Bishop Jake is untouchable, a man God has selected, and whose morality cannot be questioned, are known as loyalists. They see these accusations as nothing more than hostile attacks, attempts to undermine a ministry that has provided assistance to millions of people. Passionate defenses of him can be found in comments on social media. The devil is dishonest. God's anointed should not be touched. It's just another campaign of smears. But the skeptics are on the opposing side. These are persons who have long been critical of the megarch movement in general, or who either left the Potter's house disillusioned. For some, the accusations validate long-held suspicions that there is a darker side to the well-polished sermons and best-selling books. These voices contend that no leader, no matter how talented, should be exempt from accountability and that unquestioning fealty is dangerous. The quiet majority comes next. The Potter's house continues to attract thousands of members each week, many of whom are torn between shock and denial. They have uneasy concerns about these accusations. Do they still stand by their bishop in the hopes that the facts will clear his name? Or do they start to doubt the man who has spent decades guiding them spiritually? That internal struggle is arguably one of the most important aspects of this narrative, since it highlights Jake's immense power and the potentially disastrous consequences if these allegations are confirmed. the media's reaction has been circumspect. Because there aren't any verified court documents, major media sources haven't extensively covered the story. However, traditional media is no longer the sole arbiter in the era of social media. In ways that mainstream media might be reluctant to do, independent platforms, YouTubers, bloggers, and community forums are stepping in, sharing leaked material, and advancing the discussion. Furthermore, scandals are frequently brought to the public's attention by these alternative voices before they are ever mentioned by the major media. The alleged response from Jake's closest circle is the clearest indication of how bad this situation could get. According to sources, some of his closest associates are becoming anxious, concerned not only about the accusations, but also about the church's decision to react. There is a limit to how long silence, denial, or labeling critics as haters will last. The pressure to confront the allegations directly may eventually become inevitable. This is where the gap widens even further. Should Jake keep quiet and let his attorneys and public relations staff handle the situation, or should he come forward and address the accusations head-on? There are risks associated with both tactics. He might be subject to contradictions and cross-examination if he spoke up. He might appear guilty to the public if he remains mute. What if, however, there's more to this than the superficial charges? What if there is covert evidence being prepared behind the scenes for a court case or a media expose that would reveal this? The stakes are further increased by the potential for a more extensive inquiry, because TD Jake wouldn't be the only person affected if any of these accusations were true. It has the potential to upend the whole Christian landscape in America. And it's not just his church that we're discussing. We're discussing his international conferences, media empire, and commercial alliances. We are discussing trust. Millions of followers have helped to establish this trust throughout the years. The empire might fall with that trust if it does. The true query then becomes, what comes next? Will Jake weather this storm like so many prominent leaders have done before him? Or is this the start of a decline that few anticipated? The person in the center is rarely the only target of accusations such as these. The repercussions are extensive, affecting individuals, organizations, and even international discussions on religion and leadership. Furthermore, the possible consequences in Bishop T.D. Jake's situation might be unlike anything that has happened in the recent history of the church. Let's begin with the Potter's House, which has the most direct influence. There is more to this church than just worship. It has a vast infrastructure and is a multi-million-dollar organization. It is home to thousands of ministry leaders, employees, volunteers, musicians, and media teams. The foundation that supports all of that starts to crumble if the bishop's credibility is damaged. Attendance may decline. Donations may stop coming in. Events and conferences that used to attract large crowds may witness a decline in attendance. The withdrawal of even one significant partner or sponsor could set off a domino effect that impacts every aspect of the ministry. And consider the people who have devoted years of their life, their faith, and their money to this church, the members. The emotional toll could be terrible for them. A spiritual leader's betrayal frequently has a deeper impact than betrayal in any other context. Your faith itself is shaken, not simply your devotion to the leader. When you've been taught that this someone embodies God's authority and later learn that authority may have been misused. While some may completely leave the religion, others may become even more adamant and refuse to accept any unfavorable information, regardless of the amount of proof that comes to light. The congregation can be torn apart from the inside out by such division. However, the consequences don't stop there. Jake Jakes, TD, is more than just a preacher. His brand is worldwide. His books are sold all around the world. Across continents, his sermons are streamed. He has made appearances on talk shows, in movies, and at conferences attended by world leaders. These accusations might have a cascading effect on every industry he works in if they continue to acquire traction. You could pull off book deals. Engagements to speak could be canceled. Partners in the media could discreetly withdraw to save their own image. And it's almost tough to restore trust at the same level after that. The shockwaves will also be felt by the larger church community. Megachurch leaders have been accused of not being sufficiently accountable for their actions for years. The culture of celebrity pastors, according to critics, makes it too simple for wrongdoing to go unpunished. If Jake, one of the movement's most reputable and significant leaders, is found guilty of these charges, it may lead to a re-examination of American Christianity as a whole. People will start to question more deeply about their financial decisions, the methods used to screen their leaders, and the reasons why churches occasionally prioritize protecting their own reputations over protecting the people they serve. Here's the twist, though. These kinds of scandals frequently have two opposing effects. On the one hand, they reveal corruption, which prompts demands for accountability and change. Conversely, they foster even greater devotion from ardent followers who don't think their leader could ever act improperly. We've seen this before in history, from 1980s televangelists to more recent megachurch scandals. A ministry can occasionally be destroyed by a scandal. At other times, it just serves to reinforce a narrative of persecution that attracts more individuals. Could T.D. Jake use this as an opportunity to say that he is being unfairly attacked and use criticism to motivate his supporters? It's likely, not just possible. And then there's the legacy issue. For decades, T.D. Jake has worked to establish his reputation, power, and business. In addition to being a preacher, he has strategically positioned himself as a cultural voice, a thinking leader, and even a father figure to generations of Christians. Such accusations jeopardize not only his current situation, but also everything he has created and everything his name stands for. Will his leadership and sermons be remembered in years to come? Or will the shadow of these allegations take center stage? This leads us to the unsettling reality. The harm to Jake's reputation has already started, regardless of whether these accusations are ever validated in court. Perception is frequently just as important as fact in the court of public opinion. Furthermore, it is often impossible to entirely rebuild trust after it has been damaged.